Hello everyone, my name is Quinn Knight, and welcome back to How to Not Suck at Star Wars Battlefront II. Today we'll be covering Boba Fett, the galaxy's most notorious bounty hunter, and one of my personal favorite heroes for HVV in Battlefront 2. We'll start this off by going over the very basics. You can effectively use Boba on the battlefield, and then move on to the best loadout and strategy that you can use to dominate the enemy team. After this video is completed, this will leave us with only one original villain and one original hero left to cover before the next DLC, those being Yoda and Bossk. Full disclosure, I am not looking forward to making a Yoda video at all, so if you'd like to see an episode on our little green friend, let me know by leaving this video a like. Also, if you are new around here and you love all things Star Wars, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We just hit 40,000 subscribers 3 days ago, and here we are at almost 43K, so thank you guys all so much for that. But anyways guys, let's get into this. Let's start this off by covering the basics, Boba Fett's health stats and movement capabilities. Boba starts out with 500 HP, which is the absolute lowest of any hero in Battlefront 2, and Boba is very fragile when he's stuck on the ground. He can be killed in 2 shots by a ton of commonly used weapons, including the Vanguard shotgun and Chewbacca's bowcaster. However, Boba's survivability is quite high once his movement is factored into his playstyle. Boba is of course equipped with his jetpack, and this jetpack runs on a slow burning fuel that depletes whenever the left trigger is held down and refills whenever you let go. While flying, I do not recommend ever holding the trigger down entirely. Reach the height you desire and then just tap the trigger to keep yourself airborne for a much longer duration. If you do hold down the trigger the entire time, Boba's jetpack will run out of fuel in just over 5 seconds. Conserving your fuel by tapping the trigger can keep you in the air for many more seconds and will allow your jetpack to partially refill mid-air. The jetpack is useful for just about anything, reaching heights that few others can reach, escaping from even the most dire of situations completely unscathed, and most importantly, raining down from above on enemies before they have any idea what hit them. The jetpack is rather noisy, but I find that most players pay you no attention until you're actually damaging them, and by that time it's generally too late. Boba Fett also has a standard jump, and his dodge roll is replaced by a jetpack enhanced dash. This dash activates Boba's jetpack for a short amount of time, sending him dashing forward extremely quickly in whichever direction you desire. Using and abusing this dash does not use any of your jetpack fuel, so if you're completely out and stuck on the ground, spam this move to keep your distance from enemies, as his base running speed is very slow. I also find his dash is very useful for dodging hero attacks, like Rey's dash strike or Han's detonite charge, and it's worth pointing out that Boba Fett's melee attack is a flamethrower, but just know that it's entirely visual and has the same range and damage as any other standard hero melee. Boba's primary weapon is of course his EE3 blaster, a 3-round burst rifle and Fett's signature weapon, and as many of you guys have pointed out in the comment section of my past videos, this is without a doubt one of the weakest hero weapons in Battlefront 2, mostly due to the inability to aim down sight and its widespread at medium to long range. That's right, this is a rifle that you are forced to hipfire with. Up close and personal, this weapon is decent at best, but the problem is Boba Fett is not a hero you want to engage in close range gunfights with, as he has always been a hero that does best picking off people at medium to long range from a high vantage point. The only time you should ever be in very close range is in HVV when you're playing against players who are either distracted or just don't know what they're doing. Galactic Assault just has too many things going on and too many enemies to keep track of. In HVV at least, you'll be dealing with a maximum of 4 enemies at any given time, so if you're aware and can always keep track of who is where, getting up close to deal some damage with your blaster can be effective against heroes. In GA, whether or not Boba can be effective is very situational. Areas with dozens of vantage points and places to hide can give you the cover you need to pick off people at close to medium range, but anything long range you won't be able to do anything more than tickle enemies with the EE3, as the spread is just all over the place. The best thing you can do in Galactic Assault is flank your enemies the best you can to get to a reasonable range and then take down your enemy. Moving on, let's cover Boba Fett's abilities, Concussion Rocket, For the Hunt, and Rocket Barrage, and this is where the nerfs for Boba Fett really come in. Both For the Hunt and the upgraded Rocket Barrage were nerfed fairly heavily with the last patch, which we'll be discussing when we get to them. First, let's cover the weakest of Boba Fett's 3 abilities, his Concussion Rocket, and you guys probably know there isn't too much to say about this ability. It's exactly what it sounds like. Boba shoots 1 rocket from his wrist that dazes the enemy for a moderate amount of time. It doesn't damage the enemy at all, it has a pretty small blast radius, and quite honestly, it's very easy for other players to counter. It's nothing like Leia's flash in terms of obscuring vision, and it's not very hard for enemies to deal with at all. I often just fire my Concussion Rocket into a group of enemies if I'm planning on taking them out just to slightly disorient them, as the rocket does fire fairly quickly and it certainly cannot hurt. There's really not much to this one, use it like you would any other concussion grenade. Next up we have For the Hunt, and this ability shields Boba Fett from enemy radars, allowing him to sneak up on enemies and reveal all enemies to him on his own radar. This gives great insight into everything surrounding you and should allow you to easily predict the enemy team's next move, but more importantly, this ability gives Boba Fett unlimited fuel in his jetpack, allowing you to fly to your heart's content for the duration of For the Hunt. Before the patch, activating For the Hunt would refill the fuel in Boba's jetpack as well, so once the ability is over, you'd still have an entire tank of jetpack to work with. Unfortunately, this was changed to pause the amount of fuel where it was when the ability was activated, so if you pop For the Hunt when you have half a tank, you'll be able to fly unlimited until the ability expires, but then you'll have a half a tank once it's over. This part of the ability is currently bugged as well, and this is 100% not intentional, so be careful. If you activate For the Hunt when you have no fuel, you won't be able to fly at all while For the Hunt is active. It's more of a detriment than anything if you accidentally activate it then. Your tank will not refill, you won't have the unlimited fuel, and you'll be stuck on the ground for upwards of 10 to 15 seconds, and this can and will get you killed. So until they fix this, just make absolutely sure you have fuel in your jetpack before you ever activate For the Hunt. As far as when to use this ability, in HVV I tend to just save it for when I need to make a quick escape. The extra fuel is the most important part of For the Hunt in that game mode, and in Galactic Assault I tend to push up, use my For the Hunt to get an idea of how many enemies I'm dealing with, and then proceed to clean house, plain and simple. Alright, we're gonna move on to what everyone really wants to hear. What are the best star cards for Boba Fett? And you may have noticed that we just skipped over Boba Fett's Rocket Barrage, only because this ability is heavily reliant on the correct star cards. Without star cards, Boba Fett slowly shoots out 3 missiles that deal moderate damage. With the 2 cards I'm about to recommend, Boba Fett will shoot out 7 rockets with increased damage to heroes, and they shoot out much quicker. The 2 cards you should always run with any Boba Fett build are Intense Barrage and Anti-Hero Rockets. Intense Barrage, once fully epic, increases the amount of rockets Boba fires from 3 to 7 and also doubles the fire rate. This doubles the amount of rockets he fires as well, and before the patch Boba could fire 8 rockets once epic, but this was nerfed from 8 to 7 just for balancing purposes because it was a little ridiculous in HVV. Boba Fett was pretty damn OP before the patch, and in all honesty, this is one of few cards that is well worth the 480 crafting parts to go from 6 to 7 rockets. The other card you're going to always want to be running is Anti-Hero Rockets. This increases the amount of damage each rocket does by 20, so the full rocket barrage will deal an extra 140 damage to all heroes. It won't do anything against infantry, but 140 extra damage against heroes is super nice, and in HVV, this needs no explanation to just how useful it is. In Galactic Assault, this will save your life when another hero is out for your blood. It will take them out much quicker and make things much easier for yourself. As far as the third card goes, I recommend Fuel Efficiency. This star card gives Boba Fett 15% more airtime from his jetpack, allowing him to fly longer and travel further. When it comes down to his third card, in my mind, it's totally up to preference. Blaster Disabler can be pretty fun in Galactic Assault, and makes Boba's concussion rocket significantly more useful by disabling the blasters of anyone affected for a little over 1 second. Quick Refill is also pretty nice. It refills your jetpack 15% more quickly when not in use, but I'd rather fly longer than refill quicker. Whichever one of these 3 fits your playstyle best is absolutely fine for the third card. It really doesn't matter that much, but always have on Anti-Hero Rockets and Intense Barrage. Those are absolutely essential. Overall, Boba Fett, even after the nerf, is still an excellent hero in HVV. A skilled player can single-handedly wipe out an entire team with ease, as his Rocket Barrage is without a doubt one of the best offensive abilities in this game. When it comes to dealing damage, Boba is very much a one-trick pony. His blaster is pretty weak, but his Rocket Barrage more than makes up for it. The most effective way to use Boba in HVV is just to allow your teammates with lightsabers to engage, and then rain from above with your rockets. While your barrage is on cooldown, just pester the enemy team with your blaster to deal additional damage. And in Galactic Assault, it's not hard to go on streak with Boba, not at all. He's very easy to use, and his rockets are essentially free kills, but he's not a hero I ever feel like using, and I don't really recommend you use him unless you just really like him, because he's very easy for the enemy team to kill. Sentry guns knock him out of the sky, which leaves him very vulnerable, and overall, I would recommend using Palpatine, Bosk, or Maul before I'd ever recommend you use Boba. He does the best on maps like the second phase of Yavin 4, where he can easily make it to cover and strike when prepared, but the lack of an ability to to regain health is very tough for him. He can only regenerate 150 in total. Still, he's my second favorite villain in HVV, which is why I use him pretty much all the time in my streams, and after the nerf, he's not as good as he once was, but he's still pretty damn effective. But anyways guys, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to see me finish off the rest of the heroes, let me know by leaving this video a thumbs up. If you're new around here and you love all things Star Wars, feel free to subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys for the last 2 months. Went from 0 subs to 40-some thousand. It's absolutely insane. Thank you all so much for watching, and bye. I'm solo, I'm solo.